Joining me this morning to talk about the CASA program, which of course is part of the Childhaven umbrella of programs here in San Juan County. Back with me for a great return visit, Keba Gorman is here. She is now the CASA program director. Good morning. Welcome back.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
You bet. Good to have you here. Also joining us here in Studio A is Jordan Carfield. She is an advocate coach with CASA. Good morning to you.
Good morning. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. Good to see you here. And Sunny Elliott is here. She's a CASA volunteer. Good morning to you.
Good morning as well.
We have a full studio here this morning, so it's great to have everybody with us. And I wanted to make sure we can see Sunny down there at the end, so I'm going to hit that button. So there she is, with her wave, with her parade wave. She's been practicing. So
Exactly.
Welcome, everyone. It's great to have you here. And Keba, I guess first and foremost, congratulations to you because you are the new program director of CASA, and that means that we give a shout out to Amy O'Neill, who served as the CASA program director for how many years are we thinking?
21 years, just shy of 22. And so
Wow.
we enjoyed having Amy, and we appreciate all the work that she has done for the county and for the children and our CASA volunteers. And so she'll be missed, but she is still a CASA volunteer. So.
Why am I not surprised? Why am I not surprised that she's still involved? But she is enjoying her well-deserved retirement, and we wish her well. And I would say probably she and I talked about CASA for 15 of those 21, 22 years that she was with the program. So
Wow.
that's wonderful. But anyway, but congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Because I know it's a big job as well. And you've been with CASA for a number of years, though, too, correct?
I have for about 3.5 years. In July will be 4. So she's taught me quite a bit and mentored me and helped and develop all the stakeholders' relationships. And so she continues to be my mentor whenever I need to call her. So
Wonderful. Well, that's great. That transition has been pretty smooth, it sounds like to
yes.
me. So.
Oh yes, and well supported.
Yeah, perfect. Very good. Well, let's talk about CASA and the CASA program, of course, and the continuing need for CASA volunteers that unfortunately has not gone away. And so, Jordan, I want to start with you, maybe a little bit about your job as an advocate coach and the need for more advocates, correct?
Yeah, we do. We need more advocates right now. We would always love to have 100% of the cases we have served, so 100% of the children we have having an advocate. And we currently need, I think, about 3 or 4, but we would love to have more on standby as well.
Wouldn't it be nice to say, oh, we don't have any cases for you right now, but stand by. We'll probably get one in the next week or so.
We never know when we're going to have a need, so we
Of
definitely
course.
would love to have people involved and with us and at least be on standby for those cases. But yeah, we are looking for more volunteers right now.
Right. And the timing of your visit here is important as well because you have your
Yes.
training coming up, which is why we like talking about the CASA program in the fall and the spring to coincide with that training that you do, because that's how folks can really get into the CASA program is to sign up now, and then they're ready for the training, which begins in early April.
Absolutely, yes. Our pre-service training does start on April 5th. It's a 2-week training with one Saturday, and the rest are evening. And you can contact us for that broad schedule as well. But yeah, right now would be the best time to go ahead and get started on that process, filling out an application online, having a first interview with us. We do require a background check, and attending the pre-service training. We do have an alternate route if you can't attend the pre-service training, but we are looking, it's a great opportunity to hear from local judges, attorneys, social workers, CYFD, and experts from our community and get really firsthand knowledge. So, yeah.
It's really a who's who, right? Of the
Yeah.
folks, of the same folks that the CASA volunteer deals with then when they're volunteering, correct?
Yes.
And that's important, I think, to be
Very
able to match
important.
faces with names and things like that.
Yeah, especially it'll be in person as well. So a lot of stuff is still online right now. So this is a really great opportunity to meet some names and faces in person.
Very good. And Kevin, let me come back to you and ask you a bit about kind of the CASA program for folks who've been living under a rock for the last 22 years and 15 years that I've been talking about it on KSJE. But this is a really important program, and it really has served to help a lot of children, not just in San Juan County, but actually throughout the country, throughout the world, correct?
Yeah, so CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates. And so it is a program through National CASA for our county, through San Juan County. It is a program under Childhaven. And so there are other CASA programs throughout the state. And so our job is to basically find community members within San Juan County to advocate for a child who's in state custody due to an abuse and neglect. And so sometimes people get us confused confused with like big brothers, big sisters, but we have to remember that these children are in legal custody, meaning that there is a petition that has been filed by the Children's Court judge that's been filed by the Children, Youth, and Family Services. And so it is a legal situation. And so for us, it is really important that we give a child a voice. This is kind of a time in their life where they've had a really hard time. They're dealing with things that normally other children don't have to deal with. And so when we have a volunteer who is able to come forward and visit them in their foster homes, it could even be a shelter setting. Also, sometimes they're still in the home through like a safety plan or some sort like that. And so it is our job to find somebody who can go into a tough situation and give a child the support that they need, and also be able to report back to the judge as to how the child is doing. Because we have judges that particularly deal with parent situations in the court hearing, and they can hear and make a decision when it comes to an adult. But then when we have a child who doesn't have a voice or isn't speaking up on their situation, they can speak to a CASA volunteer or even to their foster parents, and the foster parents can talk to the CASA volunteer. And that way we're really getting a clear understanding of how the children or child is feeling while they're in care.
Right, very true. And we should remember, too, that this could be for even a child who is an infant, right, and maybe can't say how things are going. And I know CASA volunteers go from birth to 18?
Yes.
Is that the age range?
Yes. So
That the children they're working with?
Yeah, we can get a child who comes straight from the hospital if there is a report that where they cannot release the child back to their parents safely. And then we have children that we've helped with transition and making sure, like, for example, Fostering Care Connections is something that CYFD is now offering to make sure that teens that are aging out have the support and the financial needs and even the skills, the life skills that we learned from our parents or guardians. And so having that program to support those that have to transition, not by choice, but, you know, it's great to have those resources. And some teens, you know, they've been in the system sometimes for 2, maybe 4 years, to where they're like, I want everybody out of my life. I just want to live my life and nothing, not really knowing what's happening. But if we could have a team and somebody who's developed a great relationship, such as a CASA volunteer on the case, sometimes that helps open up their eyes in thinking, okay, I can take the resources. It's going to be fine that I go to the judge, which is like, I think, every 6-8 months. And so it's less, but they can have financial help with school. They can help find apartments. They continue to get that life skills that they continue to grow on.
Right,
So,
which is what we want,
Yes.
is that positive outcome for these children, right, who have been through, as you said, some pretty unchildlike things in their lives already. And so that brings in the CASA volunteer who's advocating on behalf of that child. And that leads us to our other guest here this morning, who is Sunny Elliott, a CASA volunteer, and so one of those special people that has done this. And Sunny, you were telling me before we came on the air that you've had about 16 different cases that you've been working on as a CASA volunteer over maybe, 5-6 years?
5 to 6 years.
Yeah.
14, I think it's actually more like 14, but they have ranged from the newborn to preteen. And it's truly heartbreaking to know what these children go through to end up being in state custody. They have no control. They have no say-so. So we've tried to help these children, individuals, deal with the problems that they did not cause at all, and to feel that they actually have a voice through us.
Right, and the judge is asking for, well, not maybe asking, but you're doing reports for the judge as
Exactly.
as the judge then tries to make a determination as to what will be the best situation for that child in their future. That's kind of the idea, right, of the court
That is
process?
absolutely correct. The judges here in San Juan County expect to hear from the CASA volunteers on behalf of the children.
And so you have done this, and the time commitment. What would you say? I think normally to a few hours a month, correct? Depending on what's going on.
It can be. It depends on the age of the child, the bonds that that you develop with the children, and just it comes from the heart. You know how much time you need to spend with a particular child or a particular family or a particular parent that may need help in the transition to reunite with their children,
Right.
or dealing with the foster parents, having them feel comfortable with your presence when they're trying to deal with maybe issues with the children, and they have, CYFD coming in, and then, oh no, there's another face that I have to deal with. So it just depends on the situation.
Sure. And some folks who may be watching us this morning and listening to us this morning may be thinking that, wow, it's a lot of responsibility, writing a report that a judge is going to look at for the future of this child. But I know that the CASA training sets you up for what to expect, what to plan for, how to write those reports. There's always help from CASA available. I mean, that's something that I don't know if you've ever had a concern about, but it's something that you've wanted to do, correct? To tell the judge what you see on your observations and your visits with the children?
And I believe it's very important that the judge knows and sees the full picture. So I rely on the CASA staff to help me.
Right.
Proofread.
From time to time, sure. We could all use that. I know I need a proofreader
Exactly,
over my
yes.
shoulder all the time.
Yes.
But they're there to support you even once you've gone through the training and with whatever the case it brings, because each case is different.
And I have possibly a weekly contact with either Keva or Joe, questions, support,
Right.
training opportunities. There's always training opportunities, which I really like, to be able to hone my skills. No one's perfect, and I think it's nice when you have that support that you go, oh no, what do I do now?
Right.
And they're there to help.
They can tell you
Yes.
what you need to do, so you're never left kind of stuck.
Right,
And
exactly.
I think that's important for folks because it's a really important job. Jordan, let me turn back to you a little bit about some of those things that when the volunteers may be running into something maybe that's new for them, because every case is different, as I said, and so they're able to reach out to you or someone else on the CASA staff to say, this is happening. What should I do? What do you think I should do?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't tend to deal with casework. Mostly my role is supporting the volunteers, especially with training hours. So I'm helping find those independent learning opportunities. We have 12 of them that the volunteers need to fill every year. And so I'm always emailing them. And if they have problems on that end of either filling training hours or needing help registering, I do a lot of that. But I think Keba can speak more on exactly if they're having problems with casework, specific questions.
Let me pose that to Keba then. I'm sorry about that, but
No,
thank
that's
you.
okay.
And Keba, what would you say about those types of things? I mean, you're always there to help these volunteers, right?
We are. And so if anybody has trouble, they can always pick up the phone. They can text us. We get text messages more than anything, believe it or not. It's just a quick, hey, I didn't see the link for the upcoming Zoom meeting, because a lot of these meetings are still virtual.
Sure.
Which has, given a lot of people the opportunity, maybe in the past where they were at work and they have their case and they're able to log in and participate sometimes for 30 minutes. They don't have to be there the whole meeting. And so when we talk about availability to the staff, we're always there to support. I mean, we always try to get back to them at the end of the day. A lot of the times we just respond back. Majority of our volunteers do just email us if they have questions. But when it comes to like court report writing, we always set up a meeting with the volunteer before the courts go to the courthouse. And so everybody is assigned to a case, but you're also assigned to a CASA volunteer supervisor. So Ruth Gallegos is our volunteer supervisor who could not be with us because of a meeting, and myself, I also carry cases on my own. So between the two of us, we get assigned, and Joe helps find our volunteers that we are able to work with on one-on-one. But Joe attends treatment team meetings for kids that are in treatment foster care, and also school meetings, like if a child is having a SAT meeting, or else like an IEP, like an individual educational plan meeting. And so Joe helps carry that load for us when we have family center meetings and hearings that we support the CASA volunteer. And so CASA volunteers don't always go to all these meetings and hearings on their own. Their supervisor always joins them.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
If their supervisor isn't available, then, Ruth or Joe will jump in, or myself, and just to help, because we are there to make sure that our CASA volunteers are understanding the legal process of what is happening. Sometimes legal terminology, people are like, I don't really understand what had happened. And so we take notes also as a CASA staff, and so we can go kind of through the whole meeting and the hearing so they understand what is going on. So that's also part of the support.
Right.
Anything that we receive, all of the orders, all of the case plans, anything like that is all shared with the CASA volunteers. So it is something that we want them to understand with us what is going on. And if they have questions or they feel like something is not being addressed that should be addressed, and then we can tell them how to follow up, or else we will take that role and follow up for them. So it's really teamwork.
Of course, and it has to be, I think,
Yeah.
right, to keep it moving forward and to support each other
Yeah.
in this very important work. And so I'm surprised to hear you say this, but actually not really surprised that this isn't like it is on television, right? These court cases aren't resolved in 28 minutes every Wednesday night or whatever the case may be. In fact, you ask for a commitment from your CASA volunteer
We
when
do.
they're signing up, right, of about 12 months? Is it about a year?
Yeah, so we always say a 1-year commitment, and then that is based on the court timeline. The goal is to always reunify a child with their parents if that can be successful and safe. And so a lot of the times within a year, if they're not reunified, then the plan should be changing, whether that is if there's a family member that could come forward and be a guardian, or else adoption. And so that is just so we don't see our children linger in the foster care system. It is making sure that these children are finding a safe and permanent home, and that's part of the CASA job, is to make sure that the children are going to be in a home where they can be successful and can be safe and supported.
Right. And so you asked for that 1-year commitment. I would assume many, if not most of your CASA volunteers, even if the case is still unresolved after that 12 months, stick with it because they really want to see the outcome for this child they've been working with now for a year.
They do.
And that's okay.
Yeah, it is okay. Very little do we have a lot of people that say, I just can't after 1 year. A lot of times we see things go about 5 months after a year. And so, and it's just a matter of cases having different timelines too. Maybe the court can't schedule a adjudication or disposition early enough, or they had to continue because there was an issue on a respondent's part, and then the court schedule, has to schedule out a whole nother month or something. And so it just keeps pushing the timeline at nobody's fault. It's just because of the availability.
Right.
And so, yeah, I never seen anybody just quit. I mean, we're there for the children, and I think once they build that bond, and then a lot of times our CASA volunteers stay on the case.
Right. Well, and that's what Sunny was mentioning too, right? With some of the cases that you've had, you have this bond with these children. And
Absolutely. And even with the biological parents, I've had one of my first cases, I still have contact with the mother because we built this bond, and it's just like, hi, how are you doing? I don't try to interfere with the family anymore, but she still feels a connection with me, and she likes that reassurance that someone will answer her, not solve her problems, but there
Sure.
is someone there that
Yeah.
she knows.
right.
So that's really gratifying for the CASA volunteers to know that they still have a connection.
Right. And I would think that the mom shared a lot with you during the time that you were working on the case, and so she feels that really strong connection to you, and you understand the dynamics of that family.
Exactly. Yes, you build this emotional bond, even though you really don't want to and you don't need to. It can happen for a CASA volunteer,
And it's okay.
and it's absolutely fine.
Right. It's okay. Very, very good. Keb, I want to come back to you a little bit about some of the time commitments for volunteers and things along that line. I know we've talked before that a CASA volunteer needs to be how old to sign up?
Yeah, they have to be 21 years or older.
Okay.
They have to pass a background check, and that is through the state, and that's because we're around children. Another is you have to attend the upcoming pre-service training, which is 30 hours plus 5 hours CASA court observation. And so that, if there's even one day, we tell everybody, if there's one day they can't commit to, please still think that you can do this, because we can still do a makeup if we needed to. And then also we do kind of follow the Childhaven policies, and so visitations is, you can do it virtually if you wanted to, or a phone call, or do Zoom, but we can be in person. It just, we have to still follow some safety guidelines when we go. And so,
and that's just COVID, right?
Yeah,
Is that? I mean, that's
it's
nothing
with COVID,
weird
yeah.
except for just we're in a pandemic,
Yeah,
and so
so-
that may be changing. But for right now, this is what we're doing.
Yeah, and so visiting your child once a month is also an expectation. We want you to make sure that you're really understanding who you're advocating for, and then those that are around that individual as a support system, because those can also lead to potential placements down the road, or just learning more about that individual.
Right.
So,
And I know we've talked before about, folks who are retired, maybe, being great CASA volunteer candidates, but folks who are working, because again, the nature of this is, court things are scheduled
Yeah.
weeks in advance, and so you kind of have some advance notice. A lot of local employers are very understanding and accommodating when an employee says, I have to take some time off for this CASA appointment, things along that line. And even students, I think, here at San Juan College have maybe signed up to be CASA volunteers to help with maybe their future careers in sociology or social work or things like that.
yeah, so we actually picked up a couple of volunteers through doing some presentation through the Human Services Department, and offering students service learning opportunities.
Right,
And so
perfect.
this is also an opportunity for San Juan College students that if they wanted to come in and they needed like 8 to 10 hours for courses, they can come and join us for a couple of nights. And even if it's just a couple of subjects that they even want to learn and not necessarily, having to do it for service learning, we are willing and able to teach them something, especially when they're going into human services. And if we have a lot of students that come to, I've met, that started at San Juan College to go into social work. And so this is kind of a good foundation to kind of meet some people and see if this is the direction that they really want to go into. And we also have interns that we have met down the road that have come forward to be a practicum student for the San Juan County CASA. But
Right.
Michaela is our intern this coming season, and she can't be with us either, but for those that need
Well, I don't have any
practicum
more
hours-
chairs, so, I mean, we're full, but I understand.
Yeah,
The
so
more the
we do
merrier.
take interns because we want to support the field and what we do, in knowing that, like Amy, everybody's going to eventually retire. For San Juan County, we've had a lot of professions stay in what we do with the child welfare, and so I think it's a great opportunity to continue to grow in.
Right, very true. Well, and I think it can accommodate a lot of different individuals, no matter what their personal lives are like or professional lives. It kind of, you can kind of make it what you want to make it, and work around whatever you got going on, is my
Yes.
point.
Yeah. No, so everything is scheduled around the CASA volunteer when it comes to visiting their child. So if it works with the foster parent, if you want to go on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or if you have a baby, if you're advocating the foster parent's home and they're retired, they can set up an appointment to go visit them. And same with the hearings, everything is scheduled out, and we are usually get a notice within 2 to even 60 days. Is that we let our volunteers know right away when there's going to be a meeting and if they can attend. So
Right.
it is something that they can fix into their schedule.
Very good. And Sunny, did you want to add something to this
Just
part of the
gonna add
conversation?
to the recruitment effort.
Yeah.
The way that I became a CASA volunteer was I was attending a San Juan College Encore course,
Sure.
and one of the fellow students was a CASA volunteer, and she began to describe how joyous it was, and I thought, joyous? This is going to be joyous?
Right.
And it intrigued me. And I then applied and was accepted. And yes, you do have joyous times when your children are united with their parents or find a forever home with a guardian or a foster parent that has chosen to adopt them.
Right. Well, and I would think, too, when these cases are adjudicated, that you have a great feeling of accomplishment knowing that you played a role in making this permanent decision for this child who's been through some abuse or neglect, and they now have a brighter future because of your volunteer work with CASA.
Most definitely, yes.
And so I think that's a great thing. Jordan, let me come back to you a little bit about the training and the other things that you do during the course of the year for all the volunteers, right, when they need extra training or a little refresher or whatever the case may be. So again, the training coming up in April is going to be 30 hours and then plus 5 hours of kind of courtroom observation. Is that kind of how that works?
Yes, and like I said, it will be one Saturday, and then the rest are every other day in the evening. And
obviously for folks who are working during the day, you've made it in
Yes.
the evenings to accommodate those folks who may want to join.
Absolutely, and like there are opportunities to have makeup days as well. So if there is one day and you're like, oh, I can't make the whole training, we will make it work. We need volunteers, and so the CASA staff is here to support you through the entire training process as well. So any questions you have, we are willing and able to answer. But as one of the requirements throughout the year that our CASA volunteers have, it's 12 hours of independent learning hours. And so we recently had a group of volunteers go to the Children's Law Institute conference, and we're able to get some training hours that way. We will send out webinars and seminars that some of them are provided by National CASA organizations. Some of them are just the community is putting them on, and I will send them out and help everybody register. But also we have monthly in-service trainings where the CASA staff will present to the volunteers, and we have a discussion, so that's also a really good chance for the CASA volunteers to ask us questions or just to get some more information on how to interact with their CASA child or foster parents, biological parents. So we have all kinds of opportunities throughout the year for CASA volunteers to engage in to get those learning hours.
Very good. Well, and I think that's important, right? Because the volunteer
Absolutely.
feels that they've got the support that they need from you and your colleagues at CASA they're not kind of out there on their own.
Absolutely, and it's also just a really great chance just to further education. Being a lifelong learner is always a great thing, and so I think it also just helps. Maybe if you already have a job, those trainings can apply to that, but also just to, if you do continue to be a CASA volunteers, more tools in your tool belt to be able to handle the different situations that may come up during your case.
Very true. Very true. Well, we are just about out of time, everybody, with our interview this morning. But Keva, I wanted to ask you again about for folks. We talked a little bit about the types of child that's in need of volunteers, and of course, it runs the gamut from birth to 18. Yeah. Volunteers can sometimes maybe kind of select the type of child they want to work with, or maybe the age of the child. Is that because maybe they feel more comfortable working with infants or teenagers or what have you, right? You try to match the volunteer with the child, don't you?
We do. So after pre-service training, we offer a second interview where we get to hear the volunteer's preference and who they would like to advocate for. But before we even assign, we invite the potential volunteer to come in to read the affidavit, which is giving reasons why the child came into custody and giving them understanding of what's happening before they can advocate for a child. So yes, there is a preference. We cannot meet everybody's preference, but we definitely try to offer them a couple of choices if we have some. Right now, we're currently monitoring 3 children, and of course that can change at any point in time. And so we definitely need at least 3 voices to come forward and speak up for a child. And so last season, we've only had 20 cases for San Juan County. And so it goes up and down. So we never know when a child's going to leave the system or come into the system.
Right. But as we mentioned at the beginning, it'd be nice to have that surplus of volunteers waiting when those extra cases come in.
Yeah, we've been very fortunate this past season. We've had 46 volunteers who have been advocating and serving for 98 children. And so we've had some dismissals where some of them just kind of filled back in. And with the visiting of children, we've averaged about 3,300 miles, a little over this past season. So they're getting out there. They're doing face-to-face as before we would get like maybe 50 when COVID started. So It's been nice to see some numbers go up, and we are currently serving about 58 cases on our loads.
Okay.
So we're doing good. But
That's good.
Our goal is always 100%, and we've only met that once in 2018 for almost like maybe 35 days. And so if we can, have that drawer of people available and ready to go, it would be great.
Right. And is it helpful to have maybe different ethnicities or more men and women, as a CASA volunteer as well to help with these children,
We do. we have more women than we do men, and
Okay.
sometimes it's nice to pair up somebody who's willing to, have that father figure sometimes that's missing. They're not all missing, but sometimes when somebody needs somebody who just, can share some things about what men may have go through, or, just sports stuff, talk about sports. Not all women know about sports, but to have that guy chat sometimes and that connection does help.
Sure.
And I think we're down to like maybe 5 men versus women, and so we could always use more men.
Okay.
Ethnicity, yes, we'd love to have a very diverse group because, our community is diverse. We want to be able to match children, diversity, because cultural is important to children as well. And they'll speak up about what's missing if, like, one goes to church but their foster parents doesn't. Sometimes having that extra person to encourage or try to make connections to how they can get into their regular routines as a CASA volunteer, that could be a role too.
Very good. Very good. Well, let's give some information for folks who would like more information about becoming a CASA volunteer. And Jordan, is that where I go back to you and ask you about email and phone numbers and all that stuff, right?
Absolutely. You can contact me. My name is Jordan. And my number is 505-325-5358, extension 182, or you can always shoot me an email at advocatecoach@childhavennm.org. I have plastered flyers all over Farmington as well, so check your local community boards. There's also a QR code on the bottom that
There you go.
you can scan, and it will take you directly to our website,
show right here.
and also our Facebook page, which we are San Juan County CASA on Facebook, but you can also find our website underneath Childhaven. We have a little tab, so you can type in Childhaven /CASA, and it'll bring you right to it.
There you go. Very good. Well, everybody, thank you for coming in this morning, and thank you for the work that you do with the CASA program for all the kids here in San Juan County. It's a great program, and we certainly hope to get you some more volunteers. So thank you for coming in,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're all very welcome. Thanks for coming in. My guest from the CASA program here on KSJE.